About this racist incident that happened to a family that was dining out.
Trump's gonna fuck you.
And the CEO of this company was telling them basically that fuck the Asians and
An Asian piece of shit.
go back to wherever you came from.
These fuckers need to leave.
And what's ironic is that this dude sounds like an immigrant. I believe he's an immigrant from England. Like he's been living here for 6 years. So it's real ironic when one immigrant is telling somebody else to leave this country. That's just hilarious, number one. And I'm pretty sure that the family that he was attacking, they're like first generation Americans or maybe even second generation. I don't know. But even if they were American or they were not, meaning that they were born in this country or not, unfortunately, a lot of people feel this way about Spanish people, Asian people, Middle Eastern. Like, you're not really an American. Right? You may be born in this country, but you're not really an American. And unfortunately, this guy who is an immigrant is telling somebody else who's an American to leave the country. And that's hilarious. But I will say this, a lot of people, we're in this cancel culture, and a lot of people are wanting this guy to get fired and this and that. Listen, there are consequences to your words, to your action. But listen, anytime you want to cancel somebody, anytime you want to just delete them, they don't go away, these problems. You can't just sweep them under a rug here. And I think we need to be a society of not punishment, but rehabilitation, right? Now, I don't know this guy personally, and I think his friends and family, those who know him, and they go, you know what, this guy really is a piece of shit, or this guy is actually a good guy. He was by himself, having a drink. Maybe he had a bad day and his wife divorced him or whatever the case might be. When you put things into context, there's a guy who's upset at something that might have happened to him earlier, and then you see a family celebrating, having a good time. He gets upset, knows they're Asian, sees they're Asian, and starts throwing Asian insults at him because that's how you hurt people. And I'm not trying to defend the guy, but I think at the same time, cancel culture, when you cancel somebody, then what? They still got to live. And they're not going to go away. And it's easy for me to say this because I'm not in this situation. I wasn't there having a good time. This guy starts hurling insults and racial slurs at me. So it's easy for me to say this now sitting here. But at the same time, like, if you fight fire with fire, nobody's going to win. And I think it is important that, and I hopefully this family does forgive this guy, and hopefully he understands what he did. He's truly apologetic, and I hope he learns from this and grows to be a different person in 10 years, right? And I don't want just everyone to like blast him and threaten him and beat him up or whatever the case might be, because I don't think that's gonna solve the problem. That's only gonna further damage this country or damage people in general. So again, easy for me to say because I'm not the one impacted. I don't know how I would have reacted, but at the same time, for me is I hope this dude understands and learns and grows, right? And I hope he doesn't do something crazy, you know what I mean? Do some crazy violent stuff. And I think forgiveness is probably the right answer. And unfortunately, the right answer sometimes is the most difficult one. And again, I don't know how I would have reacted. I can say personally, there was an article written on this, and a lot of Asian people have, nationwide, there was like, 1,000 cases, 2,000 cases of people being racist towards Asians, and because of the pandemic, because of this Chinese virus, right, as the president said it. And I haven't felt any racism on my end, but that doesn't mean that I don't know that this type of thing is happening in this country. It is happening, and it's wrong. But at the same time, when you try to fight back fire with fire, when you try to go, okay, you're going to hate on me, I'm going to hate on you, I'm going to do this, I think it just further enrages this fire of hatred. And somebody has to forgive. Somebody has to turn the other cheek. Somebody has to go, you know what you did to me was wrong, but I forgive you. And I don't want you to lose everything you ever worked for. And I don't want you to be, stoned to death. And there's a great story, and this is a martial arts channel. and I want to bring this up. There's a story on George St. Pierre, and if you don't know who he is, he's a former 170-pound UFC champion. He's regarded as the greatest UFC champion at 170 pounds and maybe the greatest fighter of all time. And he shares a story on the Joe Rogan podcast about how the bully that, he was really bullied in school. And that's the reason why he took martial arts. And the guy who was bullying, who was older, who was bigger, he was a hockey player, he was a pretty popular guy. And George was saying, like, listen, man, I kind of looked up to this guy. I wanted to be like him. But he also at the same time hated him because this guy was bullying him, making fun of him, things like that. And years later, after George St. Pierre became a champion, he retired from the sport, he actually met his childhood bully again.
He's the guy that used to bully me in school. What?
Ironically, this is like a movie scenario, but this guy was actually begging for money. He was begging for change. And GSP recognized that. And instead of being angry with him, instead of like throwing his drink at his face or getting out the car and going, hey, remember when you bullied me? Try me now. Try to do anything to me now. I'll straight up murder you right here in the streets. He didn't do that. And he said, listen, he gave him money.
I give him what I have left on me,
And he told him, hey, listen, man, you're a good dude. Like, you have a lot of potential.
Like when I was young, when I wanted to be like you, you're a tall guy, man. You're good looking. It's like full of potential.
He said words of encouragement to him, and he helped him. And months later, the guy came back to George St. Pierre's parents' house and knocked on the door and says, listen, I just want to thank him. I found my way. I found a job, this and that, right? Had George St. Pierre done the opposite, right? Had he done what most people would have done, which is forget you. I'm not going to help you. This is what you get. You're a bully. I'm going to beat you up. I'm going to insult you. I'm going to kick you when you're at your lowest point. It would have been very different. I don't know if the guy would have committed a suicide or if he gone deeper into depression. And we don't know, but I'm just saying, like, I'm so happy for what George St. Pierre did. I'm so happy that he took the high road, and somebody has to take the high road. And again, easy for me to say that because I'm not the one being impacted, but because of what George St. Pierre did, the guy has apparently turned his life around, and hopefully he doesn't teach his son about bullying, right? Hopefully he's against bullying. He knows what he did was wrong. So that's kind of the story. And the reason why the guy was bullying George St. Pierre apparently was that his dad was an alcoholic, and most likely he kind of took abuse at home, and he went to school, took out his frustration to young kids like George St. Pierre. So my point is, listen, I don't know what he went through, this British guy that was slurring at the Asians, what he went through. But I will say, forgiveness is the tough choice, but I believe it is the right choice. And we're so into this cancel culture of like delete. But listen, that person's not going anywhere. Okay, it's not like a picture you can just erase forever. You can't sweep this under the rug. And sometimes forgiveness is the tough choice, but it is the right choice. So that's kind of my perspective on this as, being Asian. And I'm not saying that I haven't received discrimination. I mean, I have received it. I'm just saying during this pandemic, a lot of Asian people are saying they received criticism racism, things like that. And I personally haven't, but that doesn't mean I've never experienced it. I know it's out there. I have experienced it, but at the same time, it's easier for me to talk about this because I'm not in that person. I'm not in that person's shoes. But I do believe, like I said, forgiveness is often the right choice, but it's the most tough one. It's the toughest one.